You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Thursday. It means we're brought to you by Rouse's Markets. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. And plenty to get to over the next 2 hours. Luke Johnson in his normal spot, 15 minutes from right now, talking about the Saints. They added a free agent to the fold today. We'll get Luke's thoughts on that. Major League Baseball mock drafts, got two of them. Kylie McDaniel and Keith Law. What does it mean for the LSU signing class? Got some interesting stats on SEC football teams against the spread that was posted on our social media accounts a little earlier. My thoughts on that. Joe Healy is going to jump aboard here, and he's up in Omaha for SEC Extra, part of the D1 baseball crew. It's an all-SEC final in the College World Series. We'll talk about that with Joe at 2 o'clock, and I'll give my thoughts at 2:30. And got some college football future power rankings through 2026 via ESPN.com, and I want to dive into a little bit of that as well. So we are loaded over the next 2 hours and pumped up that you're hanging out with us here. We start with big news from LSU football, literally and figuratively here, with the addition of a new member of the 2025 signing class. That is interior offensive lineman Carius Kern. He hails from Marion, Arkansas, and I was just talking to Beck off air, and I was like, look, Arkansas usually does a good job with their in-state crop. It's just not a lot. They usually have to get 3 guys or so out of their in-state, and it's usually not Felix Jones, Peyton Hillis, and Darren McFadden, but they usually have a couple guys that are really good SEC tier prospects, and they do a pretty good job with it. Not this time. LSU goes up to Marion, Arkansas, and snags Carius Kern. He committed a little bit earlier today. Brad Davis continues to do a phenomenal job on the recruiting trail for LSU. 1-3, as I mentioned, has Kern as the number 1 interior offensive lineman in the country. They've got him as the number 1 player in the state of Arkansas, as to 247 and ESPN. He is a consensus 4-star prospect, a top 25 player nationally on 3. Top 150 by ESPN, top 200 by 24/7. He is 6'4", 320 pounds, and is freakishly athletic. I was over on the Bengal Tiger board, part of the On3 family over here, Shea Dixon, Billy Embody, and Matthew Bruni. And Shea posted a couple of videos of Kern at 6'4", 305 pounds or so at the time, easily landing backflips. That's the kind of athlete you're talking about with Carius Kern. And as I mentioned, it's just another brick in the wall here for Brad Davis, who has just done an unbelievable job since he took over at LSU, incidentally from Arkansas, which may have given him some familiarity with that recruiting situation. I should note that Marion, Arkansas, I just looked this up like 5 minutes ago, is right outside Memphis, Tennessee. It is 4.5 hours by car to Fayetteville. It is 5.5 hours by car to Baton Rouge. So not a huge discrepancy, and not necessarily a guy in the backyard of Arkansas, but an Arkansas product and a guy that LSU really prioritized and that they pull in. You all remember when Brad Davis took over the offensive line here at LSU. It was a mess. And he cobbled it together the best he could that first year, and it wasn't great. And then he went to work on the recruiting trail. And Brad Davis has been a great recruiter wherever he has been in the coaching ranks. And his first class at LSU, first full class that he helped to bring in, was Will Campbell, Emory Jones, Miles Frazier, Tremont Short, and Bo Bordelon. Campbell and Jones are probably going to go in the first round. They're going to be 3-year starters at LSU. Miles Frazier is also going to be basically a 3-year starter at LSU. Bo Bordelon is working at offensive tackle in his 3rd year in the program. And then Tremont Shorts was a transfer portal ad. They were trying to increase their numbers, and I wouldn't say he was a star, but you went out and made that happen. You got 5 guys in that first year. The 2nd year, they got Lance Hurd, 5-star, in-state, got him in. We know how that story ended, but they did recruit him and get him in. DJ Chester was in that next class. He's now going to be the starting center for LSU. 2 years later. Tyree Adams and Paul Mabanga came in as well. That was a 4-man offensive line class. He's never signed an offensive line class smaller than 4. The class is going to be a freshman this year, 2024 class. Cohen Eccles, big-time 4-star prospect. Ethan Callaway, 4-star prospect. Kyrie Lee. Weston Davis, a 5-star prospect. Ori Williams, and then Joe Cryer. Cryer spent one spring at LSU, decided to transfer out. That was an in-state guy that I think they thought was worth a chance based on his frame. Didn't work out at that first spring. But even with Cryer moving on, you've got 5 guys in this freshman class, 3 of which are high 4-star players, and one of which is a 5-star that you wrestled away from Texas A&M. And then you add Carius Curran in this class to Tyler Miller, a 4-star, Devin Harper, a 4-star from in-state, Brett Bordelon, a high 3-star prospect, and there's 4 more in this class. Offensive line is really, really difficult to evaluate because a lot of these guys are a lot bigger than everybody else on the field. Sometimes they don't move as well. Sometimes they're going to fill out over the course of 4 years, and you don't really know what it's going to look like. I would suggest that trying to evaluate a running back or a wide receiver is significantly easier than trying to evaluate an offensive lineman. And at times, it can just be a numbers game, a depth game. Make sure you've got enough guys to withstand some attritions, to withstand some guys that don't necessarily work out, to make sure that you've got it figured out. And they have not had to lean on the transfer portal too much with offensive line because they've had such a solid hit rate on high school offensive linemen. Will Campbell, Emory Jones, DJ Chester, all these guys are hits. Miles Frazier came out of the transfer portal, but then when you look at what LSU's going to have to face come January of this year, Campbell's going to be gone. Jones is going to be gone. Frazier's going to be gone. And you're going to need Bo Bordelon and DJ Chester, Tyree Adams and Cohen Eccles and Ethan Callaway and Weston Davis and Ori Williams and those guys to assume that role. And you're going to need Carius Curran and Tyler Miller and Devin Harper and Brett Bordelon to get to campus. And you evaluate the situation. And if you need to go to the portal to add 1 or 2, you can. But this is the mold that Brian Kelly is talking about when he talks about his program as a whole. Brad Davis is following it essentially to a T. We're getting in on elite high school players, starting on the home base and expanding nationally. We're going to get them in early. We're going to develop them and graduate champions. And we're seeing at the offensive line that's happening. And I feel like at times this can feel like a bit of a broken record. That's a good thing that LSU continues to get high-level offensive linemen, some of which are from right here in the backyard. You got to get Emory Jones. He's right there. You got to get Will Campbell. He grew up in Monroe. He's a big LSU fan. He's right there. The Bordelon brothers, big LSU family. They're right there. You got to make that happen. Same thing with Lance Hurd. I know it didn't work out, but again, we're talking about adding depth. It's not always going to work out with everybody. And then when you have to go to get G.J. Chester from Georgia, Paul Mabanga from Georgia, you got to go into Texas and get Weston Davis, Ethan Callaway outside the state. Like, you got to go get those guys. You got to go get them. And then you develop them. And there is no position outside of quarterback that I more so want LSU to excel in terms of recruiting and development and performance than offensive line. It's an offensive sport, and your offense can't function without a quarterback that can figure it out and an offensive line that's humming. Coincidentally, I'm looking up at one of the 4 TV screens in here right now, and they're showing the Washington Commanders training camp. Jaden Daniels slinging it around. You don't have that guy, the offense doesn't look quite as good. But that guy has no chance if his offensive line can't perform. And by every metric that we can come up with here, and by every analyst's opinion, this is the group that is the best on this LSU roster. Saw a graphic that was put out today that was the best offensive lines in the country, had LSU number 1. Think about where this offensive line was when Brad Davis took over in that summer 3.5 years ago. Like, it was a disaster. He's turned it into the number 1 position group in the nation. And Carius Curran buys into that and wants to be a part of that and will be. To give you a perspective on the numbers Brad Davis has pulled in and we're using commitments in this class because they haven't signed, but in terms of players that he's signed in 22, 23, and 24 and gotten commitments from in 25, that is 4 recruiting cycles for Brad Davis. He has brought in 19 players. 3 5-stars, 9 4-stars, 2 out of the portal. That's really, really, really good work. I talked to Brad Davis after the decision was made to fire Ed Ogeron during that year. It was his first year here at LSU. And he was a little nervous because, as he said, I had a great job at Arkansas, but I wanted to be at LSU. His parents were here at the time. This was home. He had an opportunity to leave practice and go eat dinner with his mom and dad. That's a big deal. But then all of a sudden, 3 months in, your job security is completely uncertain because you don't know who the boss is going to be. Brian Kelly comes in. He's the one guy that Brian Kelly identified on the staff and said, we need to keep that guy right here. And I think a lot of people in that building are really happy they did because they've now got kind of a machine that they're building on the offensive line. And it's mandatory to be a championship-level football team, which is what LSU aspires to be. And they're doing a really good job of that. So Carius Kern, 4-star interior offensive lineman, the number 1 interior offensive lineman in the nation by On3, commits to LSU this morning. Tigers well on their way to a top 5, potentially top 3, potentially number 1 signing class. And Carius Kern, a huge part of that as he jumped in the boat today. Our Thursday shows are brought to you by Rouse's. Get them by Rouse's. Do your weekend grocery shopping today or tomorrow. Got a location anywhere really near you. If you're down here in South Louisiana, download that Rouse's app and make it real easy on you to get that grocery shopping done. We come back. Luke Johnson talking Saints is the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
Evolve Physical Therapy. Robbie Bolton and Evolve Physical Therapy. Almost 20 years he's been a physical therapist right here in Baton Rouge. He's looking for active people that want to get to feeling their best. Whether you've been in an automobile accident, whether you woke up with a crick in your neck, whether you're a 9-year-old gymnast or a high school athlete, whether you're a 60-year-old that wants to get back on the golf course but can't right now because you just don't feel up to it. Evolve Physical Therapy is the spot for you. It is the physical therapy clinic in town. You know, you get a choice as to who is going to do your physical therapy. Sure, we certainly love to trust our doctors, and I would very much suggest you do trust doctors. But when they tell you to go to PT, you can go where they direct, or you could potentially go to Evolve Physical Therapy. That's what you so choose. And Robbie Bolton would suggest you very much choose Evolve Physical Therapy. They're going to do so much hands-on physical therapy over there at the clinic, whether it's soft tissue manipulation, dry needling, cupping, scraping, isokinetic testing. They've got it all. He's worked with a lot of former LSU and professional athletes, Kevin Gaussman, Austin Nola. If those guys who are making millions of dollars with their body trust Robbie Bolton with theirs, why not trust him with yours? It's Evolve Physical Therapy. They're online at evolvept.com, and they're over on Starring near Highland Road. It's Evolve Physical Therapy, evolvept.com.
Get the 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge app powered by Bayou Ford and tap the microphone icon to send us your thoughts in an audio message. Your message could be played on air during Off the Bench with Esther and T-Bob, The Hunt Palmer Show, and after further review with Matt Moscone.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared towards seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Farming is a way of life for us. It's not something we get up in the morning and dread going do. It's just something we go to bed at night looking forward to getting up to go do. John Deere equipment is what we as farmers strive to have. So it's in your blood, it's in your veins. It's just a part of who you are. Green is what we want to be in. The other tractors were acquired to patch it up to get to where you want to be. Where we want to be is in John Deere. Flip the switch and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you.
GIF edition of Live at Lunch, live at Rufino's, Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. My man, Devin Hold the Mayo Snow, will be co-hosting for the entire show. Come by and see us. Live at Lunch, live at Rufino's, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Friday, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You are listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
Rouse's Supermarkets, official supermarket of the New Orleans Saints. All fairly quiet on the Saints front, but there are a few things to talk about, and to do so, we bring on our guy Luke Johnson from The Advocate. Joins us every Thursday here on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Luke, how we doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I want to talk about a big picture thing before we get into some of the news of the last couple of days. I saw that Derek Carr and Demario Davis had an event last night, faith-based event there in New Orleans, and it got me thinking kind of about leadership and the culture within New Orleans Saints. For so long, kind of Drew Brees was the face of everything, and obviously that's a long time in the rearview mirror now. It seemed like there were, from afar, some cracks in that foundation last year as there was frustration kind of that showed up multiple times. How do you feel about kind of the culture and where things stand with New Orleans as we kind of venture into the offseason?
I feel better about it now than I did in like February after the season, when basically everybody within the organization was saying like, "Hey, we have a problem," and it's a problem with accountability. It's a problem with feeling comfortable. They needed to kind of get their grit back. So I feel better about it because they've been intentional about it. A lot of guys have said all the right things this offseason about kind of buy-in from the team, and understanding that they need to get that right. But like I think this is one of those things that you can say all the right things in May and June, and you could be making strides toward it. But like, is it going to click? I mean, I think that remains to be seen. I think Derek Carr, for whatever his perception is outside the building, I think a lot of people in the building really like Derek Carr, and he can be an effective leader on the team. Demario Davis and Tyrann Mathieu and Cam Jordan really hold down the defensive side of things. But I also think a lot of this is going to depend on how they play. I think that's where a lot of the cracks started to show last year, when they didn't play well and guys started to want the ball, and they were calling each other out on social media and blowing up at each other on the field. I mean, that stuff starts to show a lot more when you're playing losing football. If they're playing winning football, it's going to look a lot better. So I'm positively feeling about this right now, but I'm kind of withholding judgment in totality.
What was the biggest thing for you in all of that? Was it the yelling on the field between Derek Carr and offensive linemen? Was it Michael Thomas's Twitter? Was it the end of the season with the touchdown against Atlanta and Dennis Allen's press conference? I know it all goes into it, but what was the thing that opened your eye maybe the most?
I don't think there was any one thing. I mean, I just think it was all of it.
Yeah.
And all of that stuff just pointed to the culture being in decline. I mean, for years when you talk to these guys, guys who signed with the Saints in free agency and guys who found themselves on the team, they would all talk about the culture being a positive part of the organization. And, I think this is it was a team that experienced a lot of success. From that 2017 to 2020 stretch, they won more games than anybody in the NFL. And they kind of rested on it a little bit. And you take the key cog out of there and Drew Brees, who kind of held everything together, and it lessened and it slacked. And you saw it manifest in a number of different ways. And look, they've taken efforts to kind of clean up some of that with their personnel. Yeah, I mean, Michael Thomas is still a free agent. I still believe there's like a 0% chance he'll be back just because of the way it ended. And they're making it a priority to get this kind of fixed and cleaned up. But again, it's if they go out and lose, 3 out of their first 5, I would totally expect things to look bad again because winning is the thing that really makes that stuff kind of all come together.
I've talked to Hester about this a little bit, and he says that everybody on the team and in the locker room understands that this is a business and that there are going to be players who are going to do the best for themselves financially, at times compromising the team, especially in terms of holdouts, and everyone kind of understands it. We know what Alvin Kamara has said over the last week in terms of what that means to the Saints locker room and how quickly it get resolved. I mean, how does this whole thing fit in?
Yeah, I still think the most important thing to a lot of these guys is their paychecks. A lot of these guys, they're making a lot of money, and they all understand it. And they all love the game. But if it's coming down to CBA negotiations, they're all willing to step away from the game. This is their livelihood. They understand when a guy is basically entering the last year of his deal. He has no guarantees beyond next year. They're like, yeah, go get your money. But I think that is also coming with the understanding that they're expecting something to get done, and whether that's an agreement between Kamara or the Saints or an understanding that Kamara is just going to have to play out the last year of his deal and show what he's going to be able to do. And it's going to be one of those things that I just think the likelihood of him sitting out the season is just so small, in my opinion, because if he's really looking for financial security here. I don't know if sitting out a year after you have 3 straight kind of down seasons where you're about to turn 30 is the best, financial decision for Alvin Kamara. So I fully expect something's going to get done. I don't think he's going to get traded. I don't think that makes sense for the Saints because I don't know what his value is as a trade chip right now. And I think guys get it. They understand it as long as he's be there in the long run.
Luke Johnson's our guest, Saints beat reporter for The Advocate, with us every Thursday here talking black and gold. Report earlier today that the Saints have signed former brother Martin and Tulane safety Roderick Teamer. What can you tell us about him, how he earned this, and what impact he could have?
Yeah, he showed out in his tryout. I think when you're looking at the new kickoff rule in the NFL, and the potential for that to be a pretty drastic change in the way in the way the game is played and the way the roster is constructed. I think it makes a lot of sense to find a guy with a lot of special teams experience who can help you in that. I still think that he's going to have to prove that he earns a roster spot. Getting a 1-year contract after a tryout is one thing, but he's going to have to earn that throughout training camp. But that new kickoff rule, man, is really going to be different, and it's going to change the way teams look at their rosters. And I think it's only going to be beneficial to teams that have a number of standout special teams guys on their club. Adding him to the mix, that also includes JT Gray, especially after you lose Ike Yadam in free agency. Yadam was a really important part of their special teams units last year. I think he's definitely got a chance to make the club.
What do you think about the Saints in that kickoff return game? Is that Shaheed's role? Is he too important now as a number 2 wide receiver? What do you think they do there?
No, actually, the interesting thing about this, and Darren Rizzi talked about this, their special teams coordinator, is that return is now so important. You're opening up like 6-7 plays a game that just weren't there before.
Yeah.
They were just like touchbacks. So it's going to make players who are starting caliber players relevant on special teams as return men. It's not just going to be Rashid Shaheed back there. If Alvin Kamara plays this year like we're all expecting, I think we're going to see Alvin Kamara back there. I think we'll see Taysom Hill back there. We're going to see guys who are important to the club in other roles outside of returns back there taking kicks back. And I think we're going to see more than one return man back deep. I mean, we were watching practice last week, and they had Taysom Hill on the field with Rashid Shaheed, both back deep returning kicks at the same time. They had like Jermaine Jackson, their undrafted rookie free agent, who was a return specialist at Idaho. They had him back there with Jamal Williams. So, I think if anything, this new rule just makes Shaheed more valuable. He was an all-pro returner last year, and if he's able to now just add some juice as a kick returner instead of just a punt returner, I mean, yeah, go for it.
I mean, that is sick. Like, I love that. I realize that one of the greatest plays in the history of the Saints franchise was a surprise onside kick. How many of those are executed every year? 2 in a year, maybe, if we're lucky. And to have that amount of plays and put that amount of talent on the field, I'm way pro. I think it's awesome.
I think it is too, man. I think it's going to be really exciting. And like, it's also going to be just fascinating to watch this unfold in the preseason because nobody has any idea yet. They'll just, the assumption is that there's going to be more plays. You're going to have star players on the field more, but like there's different ways to take advantage of these roles. And they're going to get creative trying to figure out ways to do it. I think Taysom Hill as a returner is fascinating because he can throw a football.
Yeah.
So like a throwback becomes like a legitimate play with Taysom Hill on the field. And just on top of that, all these guys are learning this stuff for the first time. They're going to be like some mistakes and some big plays. I cannot wait for it. I think it's going to be so fun.
Awesome. Have a great weekend, Luke. We appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Luke Johnson, Saints beat reporter for The Advocate. That's as much fun as I've had talking about the Saints in a few weeks, since the draft probably, just thinking about, they got some guys that can do some cool stuff in returns, because I'll be quite frank with you, on June 20th here, I hadn't spent a lot of time in the last few weeks thinking about NFL football kick returns. But now that I start thinking about it, like that sounds kind of fun. So yeah, that'll be an interesting development maybe in preseason and certainly when the season kicks off. So thanks to Luke for jumping aboard. If you're looking for Saints content all year round, you can find it on our YouTube channel, Hunt on Saints. Subscribe up to it. We certainly do appreciate that. All right, when we come back, we still have tons to get to over the next 90 minutes. 2 different mock drafts came out, one from The Athletic, one from ESPN.com, and I've kind of got some of my thoughts on some of the LSU signees and players, and then the gaps in those mock drafts and how much money that shifts when you change the pick number. I think some of it's fascinating. It certainly involves a couple of LSU signees. So we'll get to all of that coming up next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
I told you yesterday, but there is a storm in the Gulf, and it will not be the last one, I'm guessing. Go ahead and give yourself the peace of mind today to know that you're not going to lose power thanks to the folks at Boudreaux's Electric. Neil and Melissa have been running things for 40 years. Got Justin now running things from a sales perspective for them. And they're a fantastic family-run company right here in South Louisiana. Their phone number is 985-397-1562. 397-1562 in the 985 area code. Make that call today so that when that storm does roll through, you've got the peace of mind of knowing that you're not going to lose power. It happens all the time down here, and it's preventable. And Boudreaux's Electric can get you a home standby generator from the folks over at Generac. You're going to have a full-time Boudreaux's Electric employee that comes in to install that. They're going to do most of that installation underground so that it looks nice next to your home. And again, I say it 3 times every time I do this ad because that's what it is. It's peace of mind of knowing you're not going to lose power with that home standby generator. You can check them out online at boudreauxelectrical.com or give them a call, 985-397-1562. That is Boudreaux's Electric.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Bayou Ford has $10,000 off F-150. $10,000 off the new 2024 Ford F-150. And all new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Elevate brand visibility, ignite customer engagement with the power of radio and digital advertising combined. Guarantee Digital Media brings the two together as a trusted media partner in Louisiana for nearly a century. Claim your free digital audit at guaranteemedia.com.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood Subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram is taking $20,000 off new 23 Ram 1500 trucks. We're open for business in our beautiful new showroom and taking $20,000 off the power.
Join me for a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Rouse's, the latest from the College World Series baseball transfer portal. And Luke Johnson talking Saints. Hunt Palmer Show 1 to 3 weekdays, 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
One of the worst things about a promo is you have to wait until you can actually experience what they're talking about. Not in this case. You just heard the promo for our Thursday shows. Here we are. You're here. Appreciate you hanging out on a Thursday. Our Thursday show is brought to you by Rouse's. Joe Healy from Omaha in 25 minutes talking College World Series. It makes me want to vomit, but we will talk about it because it's the one sporting event that's actually going on right now that matters in our part of the world. Speaking of baseball, mock drafts came out earlier this week after the scouting combine. Well, it was actually in the middle of the scouting combine. Kylie McDaniel and Keith Law both came out with theirs. Kylie McDaniel works for ESPN. He was actually on After Further Review yesterday. So if you want to hear that full interview that Matt did with him, it was great. They talked about Griffin Herring and Jared Jones and a couple other guys. And so you can do that by listening to Matt's show on demand from yesterday. And then Keith Law's came out from The Athletic today. So I just want to go through some of the names and kind of check off a few boxes here as to what we're going to be looking for. We're going to have this conversation multiple times over the next month. But I think it's good to kind of get a feel for where things stand today. So Kylie McDaniel's mock He had Connor Griffin, the star out of Jackson Prep in Mississippi in LSU's class, at number 10. Keith Law had him at number 11. There is no chance Connor Griffin's ever coming here. You already know that. But I think it's sometimes fun to talk about money. And Connor Griffin is slated to get $5.9 million at that number 10 slot. Cam Caminiti comes right after him in Kylie McDaniel's mock draft at number 11. So back-to-back high schoolers in this LSU signing class. $5.7 million for Cam Caminiti there at number 11. Then you have to go all the way down to number 30 in Kylie McDaniel's mock to get to the next LSU-centric person, and that's Tommy White. At number 30, he would make $2.9 million. It's interesting to talk about these slots around 30 because that's where a lot of people have William Schmidt falling. And I don't mean falling like he's dropping in the draft. I mean going. That's where they have him being drafted. So Kylie McDaniel has William Schmidt at number 36. That is a $2.6 million signing bonus. Keith Law has him a little bit better than that, up at 25. So 11 spots better. And if you move up 11 spots there, you would go from $2.6 million to $3.4. That's an extra $800,000 that Keith Law has William Schmidt making. And quite frankly, if William Schmidt at number 25 is offered $3.4 million, like you're not going to get him to campus if that phone call comes. I just have a hard time believing, no matter how much he loves LSU, at 3.4, you're going to get him here. And that's the thing that I was noticing as I was going through these picks and the slots that go with them, is that we've never seen college baseball talent any better than it is right now. And we're seeing high school players go to college at a much higher clip. We're seeing professional teams draft college players at a much higher clip. But the dollar amounts at the top of the draft are going up. And that's just natural. Prices of everything go up, and salary caps go up, and salaries go up, and the market changes. And as that happens, these slots at the front end of the draft are going up and up and up in value. I mean, we're talking about the 21st pick in the draft getting $3.9 million. You don't have to go that far in the rearview mirror for that to be top 10 money. So when you're wrestling these monster prospects, as LSU does every single year, more picks are available for them to be signed at a number that they set. You were setting a number at $3 million 10 years ago. You were going to need to be a really high pick. Now, it's real reasonable to get $3 million early in the second round. And that's the battle LSU faces here. After William Schmidt, Boston Bateman is the next LSU signee in Kylie McDaniel's mock draft. They've got him going at number 52. And the slot value there is $1.8 million. For those, I think most of you are aware who William Schmidt is. For those that don't know who Boston Bateman is, he's a 6'8" left-handed pitcher that throws really hard. Now, those guys don't last until 52 all that often unless there's some command issues, maybe some mechanical issues, some development issues, maybe not quite as refined. We saw Cam Johnson slip last year. I don't know if Boston Bateman's going to get offered $1.8 million, $2 million or not. But he's got a lot of tools, and LSU would absolutely love to have him. The other two guys I will mention here in Kylie McDaniel's mock draft, and he went through 2 rounds. Gage Jump at 62 for $1.4 million, and Luke Holman at 66 for $1.2 million. He does not have Jared Jones. He does not have Griffin Herring. And if you want his reasoning for that, like I said earlier, go back and listen to Matt's interview with him yesterday. But I have some thoughts on that as well. And I don't know that there are going to be a lot of people jumping out of their way to offer Griffin Herring $1 million. Like, that to me is not really feasible based on what we've seen. You don't have to project much on Jump or Holman. Jump, 62nd pick here, Holman, 66. But we've seen those guys go out every 6th day and work to the 6th or 7th inning. We saw it for 2 months. You've got to project on Herring. Herring was better this year. I think if I ask any LSU baseball fan to say, hey, we got to get 3 outs here, and I realize that you've got some PTSD from the last 3 outs LSU was trying to get when Jump couldn't close the deal in the regional. But if I said, hey, 3 outs to get, you want to go with Herring, you want to go with Jump, you want to go with Holman, I think most of you are going to say in a vacuum and not understanding who's going to come up next that Herring's the guy you want to go to. His numbers were the best. His consistency was the best. His strikeout numbers were phenomenal. He really didn't even have an off outing. And so he, from a pitching perspective, was more productive than those 2 guys. However, there's more projectability that you have to do with Herring as opposed to, hey, I saw these guys be starters. And so this goes back to the discussion that we've been having, but it's just going to depend on what Griffin Herring, what the number is to take away his ability to improve his draft stock. This is not earth-shattering stuff, but I think when you put some numbers to this, with Gage Jump in this smock getting 1.4 and Luke Holman getting 1.2, you realize that Griffin Herring is probably 2 rounds after that, and he's probably closer to 600,000. And trust me, I am not here to sit here and tell you that a 21-year-old taking $400,000 is a terrible decision. But I would tell you that there's a chance that Griffin Herring could bump his value up closer to or over $1 million if he went out next year and looked like Gage Jump did this year. Just a matter of, are you willing to bet on yourself? And I have a different opinion of Jared Jones, because I think he's limited in his ability to move up the draft. I just don't see Jared Jones as a $2.9 million player like Tommy White was this year. Tommy White had 3 incredible years of production and showed quality third base defense. Now, you're going to find some major league teams that will look at Tommy White and say, that's a first baseman DH. Not all of them, but some. I think all of them are going to say Jared Jones is the first base DH. And when you take that versatility away, dollar signs start to come down. And Tommy White's a 370 hitter, 350 hitter. Jared Jones is a 310 hitter. And he can improve that. But Tommy White hits breaking balls better than Jared Jones. Now, he chases more than Jared Jones. But I think Tommy White's a more complete, versatile, and projectable prospect than Jared Jones. And that's why Tommy White's mocked for $2.9 million in Kylie McDaniels and $3.9 in Keith Laws. We'll see. It's a fascinating thing. It's so much different than the NBA draft or certainly the NFL draft. Because you also can't go down the list and go, well, they're not taking a first baseman and they're not taking a left-handed pitcher, and they don't, because every player just takes best available and pumps them into the system, and you don't really care if they're blocked up. So, fascinating stuff. You can check it out online at ESPN.com. Check it out at The Athletic, Kylie McDaniel, Keith Law. There's not a ton of breaking news on this stuff. It's all conjecture. It's all opinion. It's all sourced. And I personally sit here and read these. He's been connected to them, and he's been connected to them, and he's been connected to them. And I'm like, says who? Because they've been at his games a lot, or because some executive told you that, or because an agent told you he had talked to them a lot? What incentive do people have to tell you the truth for you to make that assessment? That's always been a little bit iffy for me, just talking about this process and the way that it works in terms of how the media members are able to get information. But LSU is going to be massively impacted by the first 7 rounds of this draft. Just a matter of how much of that is positive and how much of that is negative. We'll find out in the middle of July. All right, plenty to get to here on a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Rouse's. Joe Healy with us in 15 minutes talking College World Series. I've got some college football future power rankings that project the next 3 seasons. Where does LSU fall there? And then I'll give some thoughts on the final between Tennessee and Texas A&M and why I feel the way I do about my my hopeful winner. And I use that term very, very loosely. But we'll talk to Joe Healy coming up in 15 minutes. When we come back, how have SEC teams fared against the spread over the last 3 years? One of the answers is not shocking, but mortifying. We'll talk about it next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
Visit LeBear's Baton Rouge Casino this summer for exciting live sports action. We've got the biggest screens around, and ESPN Bet is live in Louisiana. Plus, Penn Play Rewards members can win up to $500 in Penn Cash every single week. All you got to do is visit PennPlaySports.com/cover5. That's the number 5. Here comes that website again, because this is an opportunity to win $500 a week. PennPlaySports.com/cover5. Visit today and register for your chance to play and win. If you're not a member, get the Penn Play app today. LeBear's Baton Rouge Casino, your live sports headquarters. Bring your crew for all the action. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 877-770-STOP.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Bayou Ford has $10,000 off F-150. $10,000 off the new 2024 Ford F-150. And all new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
BRAC teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered gold. BRAC, your #1 park system in the nation.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net. Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Thursday's AFR. LSU safety Jordan Gilbert in studio with us, and it's decision day for elite offensive lineman Carius Kern. Will he pick the Tigers? We'll know, and we'll talk about it. 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
Download that Rouse's app. If you don't have time to go in the grocery store, you can do your grocery shopping right there on the app. Spend $35. Your personal shop will go in there, get your Rouse's groceries, bring them right out in front at your pickup time. You won't spend an extra cent. They make grocery shopping so easy over there at Rouse's. I personally like to go in Rouse's. It's a great shopping experience. But if you don't have time, I get it. Do it on the app. Let your personal shopper bring it out. Curbside pickup available at all your Rouse's locations, including the one we use, which is Burbank and Lee here in Baton Rouge. All right, a little bit of a fun segment here at the end of hour number 1 here on this Thursday. Vern Funquist, Chris Marler, who works for us and puts together a lot of our social media graphics, put one out today talking about best against the spread records and worst against the spread records over the last 5 years of SEC football. And look, there are a lot of different ways to interpret this graphic. I get it. Vegas is not necessarily always projecting who they think's going to win. They're trying to get equal money on both sides. So it's not necessarily an indictment or a complete praise of any of the programs in the SEC, except one that I'm going to get to here in a second. But I think number one, best record makes a lot of sense. Kentucky's got the best record against the number because Kentucky is, generally speaking, not thought of to be a great program, and they've won a lot of games. And so it makes a lot of sense that Kentucky, who's probably overachieved relative to their program's history over the last 5 years, would be first. LSU is second on that list, which surprises me a little bit. I realize you go back 5 years, you're counting the 2019 season. They covered a lot that year because they scored a lot of points, so that makes a lot of sense. They also had 2 really bad years after that. So, I don't know exactly what to take of it. LSU's covered 61% of the time against the number over the last 5 years. Bama is number 3. I think that's because they just dusted people throughout that entire Tua and Bryce Young period where they were just scoring a bajillion on everybody. I think that makes some sense as well. Georgia's only 5th, which, is a little bit surprising. They've had a really good go of it over the past 5 years. I thought that they'd be a little bit better than that in the same way that Bama has been blowing people out. But honestly, when you get into the middle of this, I don't really care that Tennessee covers 51% of the time and Oklahoma covers 48% of the time and Missouri covers 48% of the time and Ole Miss covers 55% of the time. All that's just kind of about half the time. That means Vegas is kind of doing their job and you got it figured out. The thing that is jarring to me on this graphic is actually on the worst records against the spread. And that is number 16. Covering the number at just 35.1% of the time is the Vanderbilt Commodores. Now, keep in mind, Vanderbilt has got to be 80% of the time a double-digit dog. And it's not saying they don't win. They can't even cover the number. That is amazing. It's one thing if Bama is falling short of these 51-point numbers against Middle Tennessee State or 31-point numbers against Mississippi State. Vandy's catching 20 most days in the SEC, and they can't cover, ever. That is such a massive indictment to me and is so far and away the most jarring piece of this graphic that it's almost hard to take in. I know Vanderbilt stinks. You're not telling me anything new. But the fact that they cover less frequently than anybody else, and oh, by the way, not just like a little bit less. Because if you go from Alabama at 3 to Arkansas at 9, you're only talking about 5 points here. Vanderbilt is 8 points worse than 15th. That's Mississippi State. It's just time after time after time losing by 28, 35, 42 points. Like, that's what Vanderbilt football has been. If you would have told me who covers the least amount of times, I probably would have gone to Auburn, LSU, A&M. I mean, A&M's had trouble with like the Mississippi schools. They don't beat Bama very often. Like, those teams that like have reasonable expectations but may fall short. I would not have thought that Vanderbilt covers the least often. But that is what Marler dug up here. And not that it's just like by a fraction. It's by a huge margin. Like, I don't see another 8-point margin on here now that I've looked through. No, there's not another 8-point margin. That's the biggest gap, and it's between the bottom 16 and 15. What a futile existence that is up in Nashville. And LSU gets to play Vanderbilt this year and next year. So cheers to that. Maybe LSU can add to their number 2 ranking here and cover both of those games, and Vandy can drop even further down. I don't mean to kick Vanderbilt. That's not a very fun thing to do. They get kicked plenty. But that is some shocking stuff and futility that nobody can match in the Power 5, I don't believe. So that's it for hour number 1 here on this Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Open things up talking about LSU getting a big-time commitment on the offensive line. Carius Kern decided he is going to be a Tiger. Hails from the state of Arkansas. Brad Davis keeps it rolling. I kind of gave you a deep dive on what Davis has done in recruiting since he got here, and it's really, really impressive. If you want to catch that on YouTube, you certainly can. Hunt on LSU is where you can find it. Subscribe to that channel. We certainly appreciate it. Luke Johnson came on. We talked about a couple things with the black and gold. We talked about leadership and kind of what the culture is there, because it fractured a little bit last year. Where are things at this point? And we had some interesting conversations, I thought, about kickoffs and how that changes your personnel. Alvin Kamara, Rashid Shaheed, Taysom Hill, all in the mix to return kickoffs this year with the new rules. I thought that was cool. You can find that online at Hunt on Saints on YouTube. MLB mock draft, predicting the first 2 rounds with Kylie McDaniel, the first round at the Athletic with Keith Law. I thought that was some interesting stuff as well. Catch all that on demand, 1045ESPN.com's on-demand tab, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google. Wherever you find your sound, you can certainly find all of our stuff. 2:15, we're going to talk about the college football 3-year future power rankings. Where does LSU sit there, according to ESPN.com, and my thoughts on Tony Vitello and this Texas A&M team as they get ready to battle for the College World Series. Joe Healy's up in Omaha, part of the SEC Extra Team on D1 Baseball. He will join us coming up after SportsCenter on the Hunt Palmer Show.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
At Relief Windows, we're more than windows. We're windows, doors, hardy plank, and vinyl siding. But our #1 product is always customer satisfaction. Visit us online at reliefwindows.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Farming is a way of life for us. It's not something we get up in the morning and dread going do. It's just something we go to bed at night looking forward to getting up to go do. John Deere equipment is what we as farmers strive to have. It's in your blood, it's in your veins. It's just a part of who you are. Green is what we want to be in. The other tractors were acquired to patch it up to get to where you want to be. Where we want to be is in John Deere. Flip the switch and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram is taking $20,000 off new 23 Ram 1500 trucks. We're open for business in our beautiful new showroom and taking $20,000 off the powerful Ram truck. All new Bayou vehicles come with a 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
I'm Doug Brown. The NCAA sends 3 proposals to Division I conference commissioners with options for the men's and women's basketball tournaments. One is to keep it at 68 teams. The others suggest expanding to either 72 or 76 teams. The earliest that could happen would be 2026. The Celtics will celebrate their 18th NBA title with a rolling rally in Boston tomorrow. But already, head coach Joe Mazzulla is thinking about how to win the title again next year.
That's all I've been thinking about since the horn went off. Is like, what type of temperature are we going to set, and how are we going to find that balance of maximizing the opportunity that we have, but at the same time not skipping steps. So like now I'm studying teams that are in that situation, and like that's where a guy like my relationship with Pep is so valuable. Is he's won 4 Premier League titles in a row.
Joe Mazzulla on the Low Post podcast talking about getting advice from Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola. The Broncos hire former Stanford head coach David Shaw as a senior personnel executive. Shaw spent years in the NFL before taking the Stanford job.
Hey, it's Evan Cohen coming up Friday with NBA free agency days away. I'll tell you which players need a new team if they want to be title contenders. It's Unsportsmanlike, 6 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I direct your attention to something quite extraordinary?
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show. The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge Studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour number 2, Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Rouse's Markets. We'll talk some college football power rankings in 15 minutes. With the College World Series, just 2 teams left up in Omaha, Nebraska. Joe Healy's been with us all year long, part of the D1 baseball family, the SEC Extra team with Mark Etheridge. And he joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Joe, how are you?
Not too bad. Got a couple days off here in Omaha. Going to try to figure out what to do with myself, but looking forward to the finals here in a couple days.
Have you had a Jell-O shot?
Not this year, no. Last year, I never purchased one. Last year, I was handed one and I had it, but I got to be honest, I'm not a Jell-O guy, just in general. So that's kind of a little bit of something I have to overcome if I'm going to partake.
Have you had any Zesto?
I'm lactose intolerant. So I get a couple strikes against me there.
That's all right, but that's something more for the rest of the folks, I guess.
That's right.
So look, we very much enjoyed our time in Omaha last year and hope to be back next year. It wasn't in the cards. I want to talk some big picture stuff before we get into this year's College World Series because it's fascinating to me, and I know that I'm in SEC country and you literally make your living talking about SEC baseball, but I look at Texas and Oklahoma coming to the SEC, and I look at Stanford going to the ACC. And then I look at what has happened in the College World Series over the last 5 years. That is a total of 40 teams that have gotten in. And if I put those teams where they will play next year, that would be 35 of 40 berths over 5 years from the ACC and the SEC, 3 from the Big 12, and then you've got Oral Roberts, and then 1 from the Big 10 in Michigan. 35 out of 40 from 2 leagues, one Stanford, Texas, and Oklahoma move. What is your reaction to that?
a symptom of an ecosystem that is not healthy, I think is the biggest thing. And that's not a surprise to hear. It's not just a baseball problem. It's an all sports problem in college athletics. But yeah, not necessarily a sign that things are moving in the right direction right now in terms of competitive balance, which I know is nobody's goal if they would say that, but that's not really the goal of college athletics. Let's be honest. I guess the flip side argument, though, if you wanted to look at it from an optimistic standpoint, the devil's advocate argument would be, well, these teams maybe beat each other up a little bit, and sometimes there are power vacuums in the sport that kind of get filled by teams from other conferences because the major conferences are beating up on themselves. But generally speaking, I think until we have whatever's next in college sports, where maybe we get back to having, outside of football, having more regionally defined conferences, things that make a little more sense. Maybe until we get to that point, though, I think this is just something that's going to continue.
And I saw Mark Etheridge's tweet from earlier today because the ACC and SEC are dominating and they've accounted for so much. And we saw all of the College World Series this year from those two leagues. But the SEC is 17-3 in games against teams from other conferences over the last 3 years in Omaha. So, yeah, the ACC is participating, but the SEC is about to have its 7th different winner in 13 College World Series. What does that say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that speaks to the level of parity and competitiveness in the SEC that you look at that 17-3 record in the past 3 College World Series, and that encompasses a lot of different programs, all the different national champions. This is not a situation where, you go back a generation and LSU was doing a lot of heavy lifting for the SEC. That's not the case here. It's everybody's getting a shot at a national title, and now that Kentucky's in, everybody's been. And yes, even Missouri, it was a long time ago, but hey, I guess it counts. The competitiveness and parity, I don't think is going to change at all. And you add Texas to the mix, I think they're immediately going to be an upper echelon SEC program. Oklahoma, I'm less convicted of, although they hosted this year, so maybe I'm a little more confident than I was before. But it's just the depth in the league. I mean, the coaches talk about it all the time, and sometimes I even kind of roll my eyes about it because you kind of get sick of hearing it. But then you see these results and you realize this is what they're talking about, is that these teams just beat each other up all season, and they get to Omaha and they get kind of unleashed on the rest of college baseball, and then we see what happens.
Yeah, look, Florida this year and Tennessee last year, a perfect example of that, and really, honestly, LSU this year to an extent, even though they didn't get out of the regional. I think they acquitted themselves pretty well in Chapel Hill. And I'm curious if you think that the selection committee, which did put Florida in this year, and a lot of people thought they shouldn't, are going to look at these numbers moving forward and go, well, this proof is overwhelming. We've got to be remarkably lenient, at least letting them in the field. You may compromise a top 8 or a host here or there, but in terms of letting them in the field, I would suggest you probably need to do it.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's one of the big reasons why I talked to several SEC coaches during the course of this season, and they were very focused on, we got to get 11 this year, because it does kind of break down that artificial barrier of 10 that we'd have, because when we go to 16 teams in the league next season, we can start the conversation at 12 instead of starting the conversation at 11. So that was really important to coaches in the league, just to kind of break down that kind of mental block the committee had about that. So I do think that will increase. I think there's always going to be a natural backlash from athletic directors from other conferences. I think that's just kind of natural anytime you have one conference that's dominating the way they are. And it's also one of the reasons why I would love to see a change of the makeup of the committee, less athletic directors and more, former players, maybe media members. And believe me, I'm not saying me. I do not want that job. But I'm just saying media members, former players, maybe some coaches that have been around, recently retired coaches. Let's get some different viewpoints in this thing, because sure, we can bring in a bunch of ADs from a bunch of different conferences, but ultimately those guys all do the same job roughly. So we're not getting a lot of variety of thought there. So I don't know whether it would help or hurt the SEC if we do that, but I think for the health of college baseball, just getting a different committee makeup would be a good thing in the end.
And look, I'm not going to hold out hope that Rice is going to rekindle it, or Wichita State, or Long Beach State, or Cal State Fullerton even. Like, I don't – the financial discrepancy here is just too great, and with the TV contracts and all that kind of stuff. But what do we make of UCLA, Stanford, and Oregon State as kind of the stalwarts of the West with all the shakeup there? Oregon State has no conference and no more Travis Bazzana, and then UCLA and Stanford weren't very good and are going to be playing – halfway across the world in 2 different leagues. What do we think about the West and what it can be in college baseball over the next 10 years?
Yeah, so you're right so Long Beach and Fullerton, I think, are in a separate conversation because, look, it would warm my 90s, early 2000s college baseball fan heart to see Long Beach out here again, but because they were just the epitome of cool back in those days.
Yeah.
But I think those days are kind of gone for the Big West. The more interesting ones are the teams going to the ACC and Big Ten. And I'm not going to lie to you and say that I have a real clear idea of what that's going to be, because I think I could see it both ways. I could see a situation where, Oregon and Washington, for example, in the Big Ten, and UCLA in particular, go into that league just way more talented than everybody except maybe, I don't know, like Indiana, right? And that just makes them immediate contenders in a way that Nebraska moving to the Big Ten from the Big 12 did for them. I could also see a scenario where they get dragged down by the rest of the league. It gets harder to recruit because the kids who grew up in Orange County don't want to go play road series at Purdue. I don't want the lack of exposure that comes with being in the Big Ten relative to the other conferences. And it's the same thing with the ACC, right? The ACC actually, Mark, who knows these numbers better than anybody, has said that this year the ACC actually made up ground on the SEC if you look at some of the metrics behind it. So is it actually a step up for the programs that are moving to the ACC from the West Coast? I think I could see that argument. But of course, I could also see the argument that, if the ACC is better than it's been, you're just going to get swallowed up out there. So again, I'm talking around it because I actually don't know. I believe just about any sort of outcome when you talk about those West Coast teams moving elsewhere.
I heard it from the horse's mouth 2 days ago on this show. Derek Curiel came on with us. He was the number one player in the country as a freshman and has slipped a little bit because he hasn't necessarily filled out, and he said that on our show as well. He's coming to LSU next year. He's from Southern California, and he said, California high school baseball is the best in the country, but the guys that I've been with for the last 3 years know that we need to go to the Southeast, and that's great for LSU. I can't wait to see him play. It does. There's a small part of me it's like, man, that's a bummer for a lot of those schools out there that have been really, really good for decades in college baseball. So let's talk about go ahead.
I was going to say, and it's frustrating because it's the West Coast programs get beat up a lot for that. But honestly, most of it is decisions that were made above the baseball level that have hurt them. And so I get that people want to just kind of clown on them, but it just sucks because Stanford's out there trying to be a power in baseball and has kind of succeeded in spite of those things, but decisions that got made above baseball ended up hurting them, and that's just kind of a story that you hear over and over again on the West Coast.
Let's talk about the 3-game series that's coming up, all SEC affair between Texas A&M and Tennessee. Who do you favor and why?
It's Tennessee. Their pitching is set up perfectly. I mean, I said it on we had a live show earlier today where we looked at the results of the last few days, and Tennessee might actually have pitchers they would have liked to have gotten more work so far in the College World Series, which is something you really can't ever say for anyone. So they're perfectly set up there. Their offense is really clicking. I mean, in yesterday's game, the top three hitters in the lineup had a combined 7 hits with Christian Moore and Blake Burke and Billy Amick. I don't know how you work around that top of the order. And then at some point, the A&M injuries I just think are going to have to matter. With Tennessee hitting the ball the way they are, how damaging is it that you have a right fielder in Jay Slaviolette that really honestly cannot run?
Yeah.
And you can't really put him at DH because Hayden Schott has a bum knee, and he's a worse defender in his current state than Jay Slaviolette is. And so they're just really hamstrung, no pun intended, I guess. So I go Tennessee. I've liked them from the jump. They just feel very well balanced. I also think there is something too, I've told people here this week that, Tennessee's, I think, gotten to a point as a program where they're kind of tired of what's followed them around, which is that you make a lot of noise and then you get to Omaha and nothing comes of it. And, maybe you talk a big game, but you're kind of soft. I think this team is kind of done with that. And I think it's been evidenced in the fact that the nonsense has stopped. They don't really do that anymore. And I think it's a sign of a program that's matured a little bit and they're more focused on the task at hand. I have a sneaking suspicion that over the next few days, Tennessee, I don't want to say they're going to do it handily, but I wouldn't be shocked if they kind of comfortably take this thing in 2 games.
So I'm sure this question has been answered by Tony Vitello a bunch of times, but he's got Drew Beam and he's got A.J. Causey, and they're guys that seem to be quality starting pitchers that are very capable of throwing 6 really good innings. And he continues to use an opener who sometimes doesn't get out of the first inning. Why is he doing that?
Boy, what a question. But it is a good one. I think so. The answers you get are basically just kind of boilerplate stuff of we trust Chris Stamos and so on and so forth. I think the biggest thing is that they are for all of the kind of bluster around their program the last several years, they are a pretty old school operation in the way they do things. They're a very superstitious operation. I think about last year when they came into this tournament with, they had Beam, they had Chase Dolander, and they started Andrew Lindsay in game 1 of the College World Series because he had been starting on Fridays for them, and they just didn't want to shift off that. And I think there's a lot of that with this decision to continue to use Stamos. And Frank Anderson, an older school guy, like Tony, it's my understanding, really just kind of leaves him alone with the pitching. Now, obviously, Tony's got some oversight, but I just think that's a really superstitious old school group that's like, hey, look, we're winning. Why are we going to mess with something that has continually worked for us, even if it's a little bit unconventional? And, that is a little bit of a place where maybe A&M can make some hay. If you can put 3 runs on Stamos in the first 4 or 5 batters of the game, maybe you can put Tennessee up against the ropes. But other teams have tried that and it hasn't worked. So I suspect they're just going to keep doing this until it either works or it doesn't. And there's only one more weekend where it will or won't.
Last question here, Joe, and I appreciate very much your time here. I saw LSU take that place over last year. I saw Mississippi State and Ole Miss kind of do the same thing in their national championship years. This 2 days off is weird, but Tennessee has a massive fan base that travels and is starving for a national championship in anything. And A&M is a massive fan base that's starving more for a national championship than anything. I got to think that place is going to be 50-50, 60-40 and full, and not just of Omaha people, of like those two fan bases. It should be, and my guess is an incredible atmosphere. Is that what you're expecting?
Yeah, I think so, and it'll be different. Obviously, the last 3 years we've had, State and then Ole Miss and then LSU that really dominated the, percentage of fans there, and that's great in one way. But I do think you're right that we're going to have something close to 50-50 here between two big fan bases. And having the 2 days off, I think, actually helps because it gives people a chance to make arrangements to get down here. Because let's face it, for most of those fans living out of state and further away, like it's not exactly the easiest place to get to with Omaha. It's a long drive or it's a flight that you got to connect for. But having a couple of days off does give you, plus the night game on Saturday, does give you more time to get here. I think that can only help. I'm with you. I expect a really, really good atmosphere. Enjoy it, Joe. We appreciate the time. Thanks, Hunt. Always. Joe Healy, part of the D1 baseball team over there, SEC Extra. I'm mortified at these two teams playing for national championship, but I will talk about that in 15 minutes when we come back. How's LSU set up the next 3 years in comparison to the rest of college football? We'll do that next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
Every shot, every goal, ESPN Bet has fans covered for the biggest moments on the road to the championship. The exclusive sportsbook of ESPN is the only place to find special offers and promotions from your favorite ESPN shows and personalities throughout the playoffs. New users can get a bet reset up to $1,000 in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. So download ESPN Bet today. What a play. Got a gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in partnership with LeBares Lake Charles. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Get the 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge app powered by Bayou Ford and tap the microphone icon to send us your thoughts in an audio message. Your message could be played on air during Off the Bench with Esther and T-Bob, The Hunt Palmer Show, and after further review with Matt Moscone.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Gulf Coast Bank & Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank & Trust, the bank that cares about you.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support.
GIF edition of Live at Lunch, live at Rufino's, Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. My man, Devin Hold the Mayo Snow, will be co-hosting for the entire show. Come by and see us. Live at Lunch, live at Rufino's, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Friday, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Join 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge at the Texas Club Friday night. Tomorrow night for Rockstar Search Battle of Louisiana Bands presented by Parish Construction and Roofing. We've chosen 5 incredible bands from throughout the state to battle it out for a chance to open for Kenny Wayne Shepherd at his July 13th show at the Raising Cane's River Center. The doors open at 7 and the first band will go on at 8 p.m. Tickets are just $20 at the door. For tickets and other information, visit thetexasclub.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
Working towards the weekend, Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Thanks to Joe Healy for giving us some time from up in Omaha, Nebraska. College World Series cranks up on Saturday, the final between A&M and Tennessee. I'll tell you about it in about 15 minutes. Kind of my thoughts on it. Let's do some football right now. Adam Rittenberg, senior writer at ESPN, does this piece every year where he does college football future power rankings through the 2026 season. So you got 2024, 2025, and 2026, a 3-year projection. And I want to be very clear at the beginning of this segment. Like, very obviously, we understand the transfer portal plays a massive role in this. And you cannot truly project based on recruiting classes what the foundation of a program is, because it can be rocked so hard by the transfer portal, both good and bad. So, understandably, it's tough to forecast what Ole Miss is going to be for 3 years, because all these guys they brought in are going to be moving out in January. So, what does that look like for next year? I don't know. But they've given an effort here, and they've got a bit of a metric called the Future Power Rankings, the FPR. And they take into account a number of things: quarterbacks, defenses, offenses, recruiting rankings, coaching, and spit out these answers. So they've got a new top 25. And they've got Georgia at number 1, and I don't have much of an issue with that, because Kirby Smart is recruiting at a level that, based on the current coaches, because Nick Saban no longer is one, has not been matched by anybody. And their attrition in the transfer portal is not a lot, and that, you would imagine, should hold up. It's not a guarantee, but it should. They ought to recruit really well at a high level, and they're not going to hit mauled by attrition, and Kirby Smart's a really good coach. I got no issue with Georgia being number 1. They've got their future quarterback ranking at number 4, their future defensive ranking at number 1, future offense ranking at number 3. So that's kind of the rationale for that, and I'm right there with it. Ohio State makes a ton of sense at number 2. At number 3, they've got Texas. And that is a big hat tip to Steve Sarkisian and what he's been able to do. They really like the quarterback situation with Quinn Ewers. Obviously, you have a couple of options behind him, including Arch Manning. And the recruiting classes have been fantastic. They had a good team last year. They seem to be on stable footing, so I don't have any problem with them at number 3. Alabama's number 4. This is as low as you would have seen them. I know Matt does his thing where Tuscaloosa is burning, and there's some tongue-in-cheek there, but it's rooted in some truth, and everyone kind of sees Alabama as taking a step from the king of college football down to really good program. And there's nothing wrong with being really good program. Clemson's been really good program. LSU's been really good program. At times, Georgia's been really good program. Oklahoma's been really good program. Ohio State's been really good program. Really good program, not a problem with that. But it's not the end-all, be-all of the sport. And that's what Alabama projects to be really good at number 4. They've got their future quarterback ranking at number 6. Future defense, number 6. That's a huge step back. Future offense, number 5. So they've got that Alabama there at number 4. Michigan comes in at number 5. Oregon comes in at number 6. Notre Dame comes in at number 7. And your Fighting Tigers of LSU come in at number 8. The writing from Rittenberg says LSU certainly has the potential to be higher and should rise, especially if the defense gets fixed under new coordinator Blake Baker and a decorated staff. Team hired Brian Kelly to win championships. If LSU doesn't land one in the next 3 years, the pressure will certainly rise. The defense is undoubtedly in the spotlight as Baker inherits a group with a few notable players like Harold Perkins, Major Burns, Greg Penn, Sage Ryan. But overall, the talent in the secondary is not what LSU expects. Baker and his staff are going to have to develop some young players. He mentions Ashton Stamps, Javian Toviano, Jair Brown from Ohio State, and then goes on to mention Braden Swinson, Savion Jones, Dom McKinley, DeVory Antoine, all those guys. And then it talks about a moderate upgrade on defense might be enough to get LSU back to the college football playoff because they've become an offensive-driven program, boasting 2 Heisman Trophy winners since 2019. Never thought you'd read that. But he goes on to talk about the offensive line, host of talent, good quarterback situation, and a lot of guys coming in. He mentions Caden Durham, Harlan Berry at running back. They look pretty good. I read all that to kind of give you my thoughts on this, and I'll just be frank with you here in June. I feel better about LSU's next 3 years, next 5 years, than I do the next 5 months, 6 months. I'm not suggesting I think LSU's going 6-6 in football. I don't think that at all. But I don't know that I look at LSU right now and feel like a team that lost the Heisman winner and 2 first-round wide receivers that spearheaded basically everything LSU did last year and had a terrible defense. And look at that and go, well, they'll be just fine on offense, and the defense is going to get a lot better, and they're going to be a national championship contender. I'm not ruling it out. I just don't feel that way today. But I do feel like the offensive line recruiting has been fantastic. The recruiting overall has been fantastic. I absolutely trust Corey Raymond and Blake Baker and Brad Davis and Bo Davis. I absolutely trust Cortez Hankton. I feel good about Joe Sloan, and I think Brian Kelly has put a solid foundation together that should yield fruit time over time. I've never been of the opinion that Brian Kelly was going to come to LSU and do something that looked like Nick Saban at Alabama. Even the last few years of Kirby Smart at Georgia, where they played in the national championship game 3 out of 5 years. Like, that's a lot to live up to. And LSU is near the top of the food chain in college football, far closer to the top than the middle. But that's really, really lofty, and I don't expect that every single year. I expect it in rotation. Every 2, 3, 4 years, give me something. And again, I feel pretty good about 2025 LSU. Really good about 26, 27, 28 LSU. As long as Brian Kelly's here, and I'm confident in that staff, they continue to recruit at this level, and he hires really good people, I think LSU will make a couple of runs. I just don't know that I feel right now like I think this team is going to make one. So for the point of this exercise, as I look at college football as a whole, and we start to not just look at who's LSU going to cover with in the first game against USC, who's LSU going to stop Ole Miss with this year? If you take that out of the equation, just talk about how do you feel about the health of the football program? My answer is different. I'm really concerned about some of that stuff this fall. I feel really good about it moving forward. And maybe so much so as to say I feel better about it than I do about Michigan, who's in front of LSU by a couple of spots. because Michigan doesn't have their head coach anymore. Like, you got Michigan at number 5, and yeah, they have a lot of talent, and you're trying to keep the continuity, move Jim Harbaugh out, and you bring elevate assistants. Well, how'd that work for the Saints? Your quarterback left, your play caller left. How's that? Not great. Doesn't mean it has to not work for Michigan, but, like, there's some uncertainty there. I feel like LSU, from a program standpoint, is on really sturdy ground. Does Michigan crack a little bit without Harbaugh stirring the drink? Maybe. Do we fully trust Oregon, moving away from that schedule that includes Arizona State and Arizona and Cal, Washington State, and now you're moving in, you got to go play Ohio State, you got to go play Penn State, you got to go to Wisconsin? Do you really know that Oregon's ready to do that with no Bo Nix and Dan Lanning, without Bo Nix kind of for the first time? I don't know. That feels a little more uncertain to me than LSU. Not destined for failure, just a little uncertain. Everybody feel great about Marcus Freeman. I'll tell you what, you go to College Station that first week and it doesn't go very well. What does that say? I don't know. Maybe they're awesome this year. But I feel good about the future of LSU's football program, especially when we start looking at 3 years. Start looking at 1 year, I can find LSU outside the top 10 pretty quick. Over 3 years, 5 years, I think LSU is very, very firmly in that top 5. You can check it out online at ESPN.com. You can always find our stuff when it regards to LSU football, recruiting segment from earlier today with Carius Kern committing. You can check that out at Hunt on LSU on YouTube. Let's take a time out. When we come back, I will tell you who I'm pulling for in the College World Series. I'm not going to break down the action. We'll save that for tomorrow. I will tell you who I'm pulling for. I've made the decision. I've literally lost every game, 12 of them, throughout the duration of the College World Series. Who am I pulling for over the weekend? I'll tell you next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years, redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Safety can be a huge issue in the bathroom as we or loved ones start to age. If you've got an aging loved one who wants to stay at home but could run into some hazards that could be dangerous in the bathroom, let David Duvall and his team come out and help with that. They can put in a non-slip floor. They can put handrails around the toilets, showers, tubs. They can put in a walk-in tub that makes things easier and safer. Put benches in the shower to make things safer. All that could be massively important to an aging loved one in your life. David Duvall and his team are happy to help with that. They do it all the time. And the best part I can tell you about this is, if you tell them the Hunt Palmer Show sent you, $1,000 off. Go to OneBathAndClosets.com. Get that free consultation. Check out the pictures of their great work. Check out the testimonials from satisfied customers. Start that process today at One Bath and Closets. Check them out online, OneBathAndClosets.com.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the JimsFirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the JimsFirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Oshner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs, even in the case of an after-hours.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Thursday's AFR. LSU safety Jordan Gilbert in studio with us, and it's decision day for elite offensive lineman Carius Kern. Will he pick the Tigers? We'll know, and we'll talk about it. 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
So, it's no secret, and it's not news to you, that this College World Series has been a disaster for me personally. Every single game, my desired outcome has been squandered. 12 games, all 12, have gone the way I did not want them to go. And that has yielded a final between Texas A&M and Tennessee. And I have to decide who I'm pulling for in this game. I don't want either to win a national championship. That is disgusting to me. But for very, very different reasons. And I'll kind of go through the situations as I see them personally. We'll start with Tennessee. Tennessee was very, very good for a short time in my childhood. The Chris Burke teams were excellent. We had Todd Helton, obviously, early on. Like, they had some really good teams that made Omaha, but they've never won a championship. And when you go back 7, 8, 9 years, Tennessee and Kentucky were kind of the doormat of the league. Those were the worst teams in the league. Bianco had a good thing going at Ole Miss. State was always solid. Arkansas was on the come with Van Horn. Auburn wasn't great. Alabama wasn't great. Had their ups and downs. Certainly Bama was very good in the 90s. Florida was coming on under O'Sullivan. Even Georgia with Dave Perno had a couple teams that were very, very good and got to Omaha. But Tennessee was generally a doormat. In fact, the 2011 LSU team did not make the NCAA tournament because 3 of their wins were against Tennessee. And that was said on the selection show. And then Tony Vitello took over. And he started to recruit, which is what he's done everywhere he's been. And they started to put some better teams together. And that team that beat LSU in the Super, that got to Omaha in 21, was a good team. And then we saw the 2022 team, and they were awesome. I don't really have a problem saying that was the best college baseball team I've ever watched. Now, I didn't watch a lot of LSU in the 90s start to finish. But when I looked at those pitchers all throwing 95 in the weekend rotation with Dolander and Beam and Burns, and Ben Joyce out of the bullpen throwing 1 billion, and all those guys with Beck hitting a bajillion home runs. It was absurd how good they were. And they had an edge to them that bordered on over the top. And you saw Tony Vitello that year take a bat from an Auburn bat flip. Bobby Pierce hit a home run, and he kind of flipped his bat, and it tumbled towards the Tennessee dugout. And I went back and rewatched today, and Vitello jumps out of the dugout, grabs the bat, and as Auburn is celebrating, whips the bat back into the Auburn players. I don't know how malicious his intent was, but it didn't look great for an opposing manager to jump out of the dugout, grab a bat, and wing it over there. He's gotten into a screaming match with Dave Van Horn on the field. They used to work together. He was suspended last year at the beginning of the year for tampering. As they got Maui Ahuna, the shortstop, there was some trouble there, and he had to sit out some games. Then this year in the College World Series opener, he freaked out and ran out of the dugout and was yelling at everybody. He's got an edge to him. There's a lot of people that say he's matured, he's mellowed, and from start to finish this year, he has been more mellow than he was 2 years ago or even last year. But it's still in there, and he's, for as far as baseball coaches go, he's a huge personality and one with a lot of edge, and if he's not in your dugout and he wins and he acts like that, you're not going to like him. That's just how sports work. I don't know Tony Vitello. I don't know how he acts on his vacations. I don't know what he does in his personal, in his home life. I don't care. I don't know any of these athletes or coaches and never feel like I need to do that deep into their personal behavior. I only monitor what goes on in competition. And Tony Vitello has an edge, probably bends the rules a significant amount, and wins a lot. And that means people aren't going to pull for him. Famously, they're one of the best players, got thrown out of game 2 of the Super against Notre Dame. Like, it's just been a program that people haven't liked. And then you've got Texas A&M, which has overcome a ton to be here. Braden Montgomery's not playing. Shane Zadeo's not playing. Hayden Schott's hurt, and he's DHing. Jace Laviolette's hurt, and he can't run, but he's out there. And I don't think anybody's got a huge problem with Jim Schlossnagle. He's had a great career as a head coach, got TCU to Omaha a ton, beating A&M to do so. And they've been really good all year. But for me, personally, they're in Houston, well, just north of Houston. They're recruiting Houston very hard. LSU spends a lot of time recruiting there. And I realize the resources that they have. I was listening to the morning show this morning, and Taylor Sharp was saying, Hunt doesn't like A&M because he fears what they could be. I don't fear them because I don't have any respect for their athletic program. It's like, that's fine, but they've been to Omaha 2 of the last 3 years under Jim Schlossnagle. They're churning out first-round draft picks. They're good, and I don't like that. I don't like Nolan Kane on their staff having roots here, even though I love Nolan and he was a great player here. He works for the enemy now, and he can recruit the state of Louisiana. Not that they've had a lot of success doing that, but certainly Jimbo tried and had some success. And LSU loves to recruit Houston. Cade Aaron-Beatty is one of the best players in this signing class, right there from A&M's lap. Griffin Herring's from Texas, right there in Dallas. Like, LSU recruits that area hard. And the more A&M does this, could be a negative impact on LSU. Now, Tennessee and LSU swim in a lot of the same waters for transfer portal. No doubt. So that's not good either. Neither of these is great. But I have to make a decision on who I'm pulling for. Is it the program that hasn't won anything in baseball but is new to the scene and is the edgy guys with the young hot head coach? Or is it the team that is down the road that LSU plays every year that, could crank through and win their first one? I've had a hard time with this. I've gone back and forth. But, Beck, I've made my decision who I'm pulling for. On a rocky top down in the Tennessee hills, ain't no smoggy smoke on Rocky Top, ain't no telephone bills. I'm pulling for the Vols. I got to pull for the Vols. I don't want to pull for the Vols, but I've determined I must pull for the Vols. And it's disappointing to me. But the fact of the matter is that there are a lot of Tennessee fans who were around for T. Martin's national championship. The Vols have been very good on the basketball front with Rick Barnes, and they've got some pride and some accomplishment here. A&M has basically nothing. Their greatest accomplishment athletically in my life or any of your lives is Johnny Manziel beating Duke in a bowl game. That's as good as it's gotten. So I'm going to try to keep it that way. I cannot have the folks in College Station blowing bubbles like my 2-year-old child winning a national championship. That is unacceptable. We will not stand for it. We will not watch it. I will begrudgingly pull for the Vols. Vex, your thought?
Well, I think I'm not surprised at all by this turn of events from you. And, of course, I will stick with my original pick for who will win it all, and that is the Aggies.
But who do you want to win it all?
Like I said yesterday, at this point, it's bad either way. So I don't want either of them to win. But because I picked Texas A&M, I'd rather be right. I don't care in the end of the day whether or not Tennessee or A&M wins it, but I'd rather be right. So I'll say I want the Aggies to win.
I can promise you this. This is a promise I can make to you. Whatever team loses, I will consume the media content from them, the podcast, the radio shows, the columns. I will take that in. Whoever wins, they won't get one view from me because I can't look at it. Here we are, College World Series final. I'm excited. My favorite sport. Take a break.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
I get to watch the College World Series with great picture on a TV that was mounted perfectly by Audio Video Security Solutions, and it'll have great sound for all the pitches. Thanks to guys out at AVSS for coming out to my house and setting us up. They can do the same for you. Check them out online, avssla.com. Also, look them at Instagram, avss_BR. If you have no idea what the capabilities are from an audio perspective, from a video perspective in your home for your home viewing situation, check them out and see what they can do for you. I don't know anything about technology, but I can handle a couple of apps that make things sound really good and look really good, and that's courtesy of the folks at Audio Video Security Solutions. I'll also tell you about their ability to put in that home security system like we have. They've got some cameras they put up outside of our house. They've got all the windows and doors monitored. I can set the alarm and disable the alarm remotely from my app. I can look at the video from my backyard and my front yard 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, can do playback as well. It's incredibly convenient and gives us a lot of peace of mind in the house. Nothing more important than the security of your friends and your family and your home. Audio Video Security can help you out with all of that. It's avssla.com. Audio Video Security Solutions.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Farming is a way of life for us. It's not something we get up in the morning and dread going do. It's just something we go to bed at night looking forward to getting up to go do. John Deere equipment is what we as farmers strive to have. It's in your blood, it's in your veins. It's just a part of who you are. Green is what we want to be in. The other tractors were acquired to patch it up to get to where you want to be. Where we want to be is in John Deere. Flip the switch and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving.
GIF edition of Live at Lunch, live at Rufino's, Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. My man, Devin Hold the Mayo Snow, will be co-hosting for the entire show. Come by and see us. Live at Lunch, live at Rufino's, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Friday, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
It's the MLB on ESPN Radio. The Cubbies, Fighting Hunt Palmer and Jacob Becks will host the Mets Saturday. Well, sorry, and T-Bob Abears as well. we gained another follower. They will be playing the Mets this weekend, Saturday at 1:20 and Sunday at 6 p.m. right here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
The Cubs don't play today, so I think I'm going to be watching some documentary on Hulu about a murder mystery is what I've been texted by my wife. So that's got that going for me.
They won yesterday.
They did. They're on a 2-game winning streak.
The bullpen tried to lose. They tried to lose the game for him, but enough
they did
offense.
Not. Just a little grand slam by Jorge Soler.
Yeah.
Not gonna hurt anything. They brought in a guy to close that I've never heard of, so I love when a guy that I've never heard of comes in to pitch for the Cubs.
Former Cub Jorge Soler.
It worked out, so they got to win. They'll win more this weekend against the Mets.
Hopefully.
Take it or leave it.
All right, first one here. PGA Tour Policy Board has granted a lifetime exemption for Tiger Woods into all 8 signature events, or elevated events, if you will, for life. Take it or leave it.
So this, to me, sounds like if someone granted me an exemption for life to free private SUV service from Baton Rouge to the northern tip of Canada. Like, yes, it's available, but I'm never going to use it because I just don't think Tiger is going to play events. His game is not good. He is shooting in the 80s multiple times this year in majors, and he only wants to play the majors because of the off chance if he wins, he can add to that major total. He doesn't need any money. He doesn't need to win anymore to beat Sam Snead. Like, he's already done everything he can do in these regular events. I guess he could play Riviera because that's his event, but he was going to get into that anyway. So, like, I just don't see him playing Harbor Town or Bay Hill or, where the Travelers this week. Like, he's never going to use this. So I think it's fine that they did it, and I don't think it's going to take away from the game at all because it's not like he's taking someone's spot in an elevated event, but he's not going to use it.
I tend to agree with you, except for the fact that I think that Tiger Woods realizes that he has been playing poorly in these majors, mostly probably due to the fact that he isn't playing enough. He's not playing regularly in competitive tournaments. And so I think this may be the PGA throwing him a bone and saying, look, we'll let you play these elevated events. I mean, we know you're not going to go play in New Orleans at the Zurich. We know you're not going to go play at the 3M in Minnesota. So you can play at these elevated events where it's going to be against the guys you will see in majors. And if you feel up for it, you can come play. And he may not play well, but at least he'll be playing more regularly, which I think he actually wants to do because, again, he wants to win majors.
Yes.
And I think he also understands that if he wants to have a chance in these majors, he needs to be playing more regularly, which I think he will do because he is one of the greatest competitors we've ever seen in sports, and he's not going to give up, and he wants to do as much as he can to try to compete in these majors. So, in my opinion, I think he actually will play in some of these events.
Counterpoint, he should play the Zurich because it's very flat, and he only has to hit half the shots 2 of the days.
I agree with you, but, again, he will not because he's Tiger Woods. Moving on, the NCAA has presented a plan to Division I conference commissioners that would expand the men and women's basketball tournaments by 4 or 8 teams, a 72 or 76 team tournament. Take it or leave it.
Leave it. It was fine at 64. It was stupid at 65. It's dumb at 68. Just leave it at 64. I mean, they're going to do this because it's more money and more coaches can get in the NCAA tournament and, like, you can save your job. And, like, the whole thing, it was fine at 64. But we always have to chase money, and they will chase more money.
I do wonder if maybe the college football playoff expanding had anything to do with this. Perhaps not, but, maybe it was something that the basketball guys looked at and said, hey, maybe we can make some more money too.
Yep.
Moving on, Ullman Stadium, the home, of course, of Tulane's football team, has the cheapest beer in all of college football at just $3 a pop. Meanwhile, a beer at Tiger Stadium will run you $8. LSU should take notice. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. Look, I wouldn't necessarily feel as convicted about this if the Falcons didn't do this and make more money.
It works.
It does work. And we saw the beer thing that came out, and the Saints are like third highest in the NFL in terms of the cost of a beer. Just help us out here. We don't want to. We want to drink 3 beers at the game. We don't want to spend $30 on 3 beers. And it's more than that. It's 11 something at Saints games. You can't go to a Saints game for under $200 in concessions.
I really don't understand why there haven't been other professional teams taking notice of what the Atlanta Falcons did. They literally there's no question about it. They made more money doing this. So why is everyone else not following suit? I have no idea. But anyways, hopefully Tiger Stadium will.
It doesn't work on me because I only go to like one Saints game every 2 years. So I just spend the maximum one time. But if I was going to 8, you bet your butt I'd be taking the easier.
Yeah. All right. Last one here. The Lakers have officially hired J.J. Redick as their next head coach. Redick will last more than 2 years. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it. More than 2, leave it. It's just that league is just chews you up and spits you out. If you're not Greg Popovich or Eric Spoelstra, you're fired. That's basically
pretty much
it. Guys that have won championships have just gotten fired. You're out. LeBron doesn't like you. You're fired. It's a tough gig. Also, if I was JJ, probably wouldn't take the job. I'd probably just keep playing golf and yelling at Skip Bayless and who's Russo. That's probably what I would do. But we'll see. It's not totally out of left field. We thought that was coming for some time. All right, that's it for our Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Rouse's Markets. Get on by Rouse's. Do your grocery shopping today. Fun show. We had a LSU offensive line commitment, Luke Johnson talking Saints, MLB mock draft, Joe Healy talking College World Series, college football power rankings for the next 3 years. Catch it all on demand wherever you find your sounder, of course, on YouTube. Matt's going to drive you home, and after further review coming up next, we're back tomorrow with a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play. With safety